Hello, welcome to the University of Minnesota Alumni Association's webinar series. My name is John Ruzek. I'm the Interim Vice President of Engagement for the Alumni Association. Welcome. This is year 5 of the Alumni webinar series. It's great to have you all join us today. And we have a really great topic coming up about career resilience, and you'll hear from our alum presenter here in just a few minutes. But first, just a few announcements. Today's webinar is part of an ongoing free series being offered by the University of Minnesota Alumni Association, where we have conversations with experts about career life and learning topics. Initiatives like this webinar series are made possible in part by our Alumni Association members. So if you are a member, thank you. Because of our members, we can create powerful opportunities and ignite success for current students and more than 485,000 alumni around the world. Yes, we are just knocking on the 500,000 living alumni. And if you're interested in becoming a member of the Alumni Association and supporting our work, check out umnalumni.org/membership. And also there's just one other cool thing for people joining as members. Joining now, you can get your maroon shirt, which is an annual shirt that we've started to do. This year's shirt was designed by student Brianne Christian, who you see right here. And if that's something of interest, just visit umnalumni.org/maroon shirt. And one of the things that membership helps support and support of the Alumni Association is free resources like our Maroon and Gold Network, which is a free online resource from the Alumni Association that connects students and alumni to others who are willing to share career and professional advice. We already have 1,300 alumni and friends on the system right now. It's absolutely something you as an alum or a student can take part in right away. So definitely check that out, umnalumni.org/maroon and gold. And then we do have a nice slate of webinars coming up here in September through December. Coming up September 25th, management tips for new managers with Kate Bischoff. That will be great. You can check out all the listings at umnalumni.org/virtual. And last but not least, thank you to our partner and webinar supporting sponsor, Liberty Mutual Insurance. Few housekeeping items, as always with GoToWebinar. You have joined the presentation listening using your computer system, speaker system by default. If you'd prefer to listen over the telephone, just select telephone in the audio pane of your GoToWebinar panel and dial-in information will be displayed. If you have perhaps audio difficulties listening, maybe try switching from wireless to a hard internet connection or close any unneeded applications. Questions are welcome and you may submit them at any time. You can type them in the questions pane on your GoToWebinar control panel and we'll be monitoring them along the way. I know our presenter today will at points be asking for questions or feedback, and so we definitely want to hear from you. And without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce today's speaker, alumnus Dr. Tommy Watson. Considered a leading expert on turning transitions into success, Tommy has inspired many with his rags to riches story of hard work and perseverance. His astonishing journey provides the foundations for the principles he teaches today to individuals and organizations. He attributes his success to the power of resilience, and he'll be talking about career resilience with us today. Tommy is a 1997 undergraduate student athlete alumnus of the University of Minnesota and also holds a Doctor of Education in Leadership with an emphasis on organizational change. He and his family currently reside in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Dr. Tommy Watson. Welcome.
Hey, John, thank you very much for having me.
All right. First off, just want to say, just thinking of everyone down in North Carolina right now, and so just stay safe and sound.
Hey, I appreciate that. We're definitely dealing with the calm before the big storm, and I think the title and topic today will be something that we'll have to keep in mind is that we start to bounce back from this big storm here. We have to hang in there and be resilient as we go through and endure this storm coming up, though.
Absolutely. I'm gonna since we are remote today, Tommy, I'm gonna send you the screen control. So just Stay tuned for that.
Okay. Okay, just 1 second here.
It's all right.
Get this going here. How's everybody doing out there today?
All right, feel free, and if feel free to type in questions. All right, we got the presentation up, and I will let you run with it.
Okay, fantastic. So before we begin, I want to start off by saying that I cannot see the questions coming in. However, John can, and he will be relating all questions and comments to me. So feel free to act like you're at a University of Minnesota in-person classroom session. We're gonna have a good time today. We're gonna have lots of fun. So I'm excited about this, and I'm hoping John will give me my maroon shirt after this as well. I didn't get that, John. I need my maroon shirt.
All right, I'll get one your way for sure.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, so I'm delighted to share with you guys today about the power of career resilience. I think it's something that we all must have on our journey, whether our journey is to be a great employee or whether our journey is to be an entrepreneur. It's something that we need, and it becomes very, very valuable in our journey. And also not only helps us professionally, but also helps us individually as well, though. So my message to those folks who may be at a place where you're dealing with a crossroads or going through some type of transition and change is to simply hang in there. There's some good information we're going to be sharing with you today, and I hope that you will walk away with some information that will be inspiring to you and something that you'll go back and be able to share with your colleagues and others as well. So let's get started here. Again, welcome you and thank you for giving your time to be with us this hour that we have out here, because I know there's a lot of things you can be doing. So we really appreciate your time there as well. And again, John, thank you very much, and University of Minnesota for having me as well. So with that being said, I want to first start off by saying, go Gophers. Our Gophers are doing fantastic right now. They're 2-0. Very excited about that. We're hoping to keep the ball going. And for those of you who are able to attend those games out there, have a great time. And may the force be with you before it gets cold. I was planning on getting up there before a game, before the cold weather settles in. We'll see what happens. So, but big Gopher fan, go Gophers. All right. So, as we start talking about resiliency, here's the big difference between those who are resilient and those who are not. Oftentimes, we come into a place where we meet challenge after challenge after challenge, and we get to a place where we start saying, wow, I don't know if this is going to benefit from me at all, because I'm running into crossroad after crossroad after crossroad, or barrier after barrier. And oftentimes when we get to that very nugget, we tend to give up. So the big difference is that person who stays hungry to go after their goals and dreams and refuses to be turned back no matter what they face. So as we look at resilience, we have to be willing to go the extra mile, endure the pain and suffering until we get what we need to get out of it. But as I go across the country and I talk about resilience, I'm always running into people like this. They're like, yeah, right, resilience. So you think resilience is, Dr. Watson, it makes that much of a difference in terms of me being successful or unsuccessful? And I have to say, yes, resiliency plays a big role in everything we do in our society. Research shows over and over again, those individuals who tend to be more resilient, even at the collegiate level, tend to do better than those kids who have a higher SAT or ACT score, because resiliency is something that is a lifelong skill that will be utilized in every area, every domain of our lives. So if you're doubting that, that's okay. I want you to just open your mind up, and hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be a believer, right? So quick overview of our time together. It's going to be interactive. I know we're going to be online here, but I want to certainly make sure that it's being interactive. I'm going to give you some strategies that's going to help you build on your own career resilience, no matter what phase you may be in, whether you're beginning, mid-level, or getting ready to end your career. I think the information can be very, very valuable to you and can be applicable in all domains. So again, it's going to be a lot of interactive time. It's going to be some reflective questions as well. There is a 30-second lag time between when you're hearing my voice and when I'll be able to get to your response as well. So if you hear some dead time, that's me waiting on John to provide me with the questions, but we'll definitely get those things answer to you as well. Then I'm going to share with you my own personal story of resilience and how I was able to build up that resiliency through just life experiences, and then how McDonald's helped me build my career resiliency. I was at a place where wasn't quite sure how to go forward, and I ran into McDonald's. And then I'm gonna give you 3 strategies that come from my book, Resilience of Champions, that are gonna really help you elevate and really take your career to another level. And please hang in there to the end. We have a free book giveaway. We're gonna give away 2 of my best-selling books at the end, and John will be kind of randomly selecting participants there. So I want to do that, and then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end as well. So I want to hear from you and answer your questions as well. So let's get started here. So the ultimate goal, when we finish here today, I want everyone excited. I want them ready to. I want you guys out there ready to run this race and finish this race, and be the best you can be in everything you're doing. So I want you pumped up and excited to go after your goals and dreams after we get done here. So let's say Monday morning you go into your job, okay? And you were told Monday morning by your boss that you are fired, okay? I want to know, how do you respond? So here's our first interactive question, okay? If you go into work Monday morning and your boss tells you that you are now fired, how do you respond? What's your first course of action? What do you do? So I'm going to wait for those answers here. How do you respond?
All right, and now's the time where folks feel free to type it in. All right, we're getting some Ask Why, take care of my team staff. Somebody writes, people are fired on a Friday. Happened in February. Oh, it happened to someone in February. I jumped on the phone to my network, ask questions, update my resume. So yeah, some good feedback there.
Yes, a lot of great answers. And I like the answer, typically people are fired on Fridays. You'll find out in my situation, I believe it was a Monday though for me, unfortunately though. But Fridays can cause some very long weekends though. So great responses there so far. Any other responses?
All right, they're coming in fast and furious. I'd like to know the detailed reasons why.
Yes.
I went home and sat there stunned. I would keep as many resources as I can, including exporting all my contacts and yeah.
Great response. Sounds like someone even went through that as well. So we may have a similar path, similar experience. So I'm going to come back to that in a minute and talk to you about what happened to me when I heard those words as well. Okay. So let me ask you this question about resiliency. Okay. When it comes to resilience, write your response, please. Resilience, is it something that people are born with or developed? And John, you can probably take a shot if you want to.
Overwhelmingly developed.
Developed, okay.
Nature and nurture. I think you can train yourself to be resilient. Developed. I think developed is overwhelming.
Resiliency is certainly not something that people are born with. It's something that's developed over time. This little guy here, I wish many of us could come out looking like him at birth, but the reality is many of us, we gain resiliency by going through life circumstances over time, and we learn and we get better from those failures and comebacks as well. So great response so far. So when we start looking at resiliency, what does the word resilience come from? It comes from the Latin word that means elastic. And again, resilience itself means to bounce back. And career resilience is all about surviving and thriving in occupational changes and challenges, because we're all going to be faced with some type of challenge or change in our careers. The big piece is, how do we survive and then thrive following that? So another question here for you. Has anyone had to endure occupational challenges or changes? Let's say even within the last year, has anyone had to endure that?
Yes, multiple times. Acquisition, yes. Laid off. Yes. So yeah, I mean yes, toxic work environment.
Oh, yes, that's even more difficult. Yes.
Just went through a constructive dismissal, laid off from employer of 11 years. Yes, new city, new manager who micromanaged.
Wow.
Bad review, 2 years left a toxic environment on my own accord. moved into a new department and told I wasn't needed. So yes, definitely, folks who have signed up today have been experiencing some of this.
Well, that is awesome because it's all much of what we're going to be talking about today is how do we bounce back from those opportunities or those challenges in the workplace. So we got the right folks listening to it, tuning in today as well. So before I begin my presentation, I believe one of the most critical words in the English vocabulary, probably second to love, is probably the word hope. Tell me what does the word hope mean to you? What does it mean to have hope? And folks just kind of chime in. What does it mean to have hope? Because oftentimes we go through critical situations, we find other people telling us to be hopeful and have hope. And we've been told that over and over again. What are some of your definitions of hope? What does it mean to have hope?
Optimism, belief things can get better, looking to the future, anything is possible. You still have a positive vision of the future, promise for improvement, trust things will get better, everything is in your hands, belief that something good will come from the circumstances, seeing the light, positive attitude, things will get better.
I love it. I love it. So everything you guys said is exactly right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you an acronym I like to use for the word hope. And if you have your phones, you can actually screenshot this or take a picture of this slide. Please do that because I want you to keep this with you no matter where you're at, what you're facing in life. Keep this acronym with you. It's have only positive expectations. That is one of the most powerful acronyms that I've come across when you start talking about hope. Because if you can go into a situation, no matter what your challenge, what the change is, believing that in the end that things are going to work in your favor, your behavior is going to be guided by emotions and principles that are going to help you be successful. Now, if you go into a situation you're doubting and you're not believing that things are going to work out for you, your behaviors are going to align themselves. You're going to find yourself in situations where you're not going to be very happy. So you want to have only positive expectations no matter what you're facing in life, no matter what you're facing career-wise, whether you're being laid off or fired or the company's going through restructuring or you're dealing with a toxic environment. You want to believe in the end that things are going to work out in your favor. And when you do that, you're going to proceed in a manner that's going to really help you going forward. So let me start with my story of resiliency. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado. Several years ago, I was living in Minnesota. I was actually doing a story with the local newspaper in Denver, Colorado. I was back home in Denver visiting. And as I was sharing my story with the local reporter, she stopped.
Hello, Tommy. Okay, stand by. The audio is cut out for me too, so just hang tight, folks. Tommy, can you hear me? Hello? Okay, just hang tight, everybody. It looks like Tommy might be offline right now, but we will work to get him back up. It's probably just a matter of him having to log back in. So just 1 second. Or we can all see his slide, so we haven't lost the connection. It's just the audio is right. So just in the meantime, as we work to get the presenter back up, if you have any questions right now regarding the Alumni Association, I can definitely feel free to run them by me. Actually, just from an audio standpoint, can people hear me talking? Okay, thank you. All right, and again, thank you for your patience. Okay, I think, Tommy, are you back?
I am. Can you hear me?
All right, yep, cool. All right, proceed.
So sorry about that. So as I was saying, I'm originally from Denver, Colorado. Several years ago, I was back home in Denver, and I was actually doing a story with the local newspaper reporter for the largest newspaper in the state of Colorado. And as I was sharing my story, she stopped me midway through and she said, "Okay, Mr. Watson, what you're saying sounds okay. However, I need to make sure what you're saying is actually true." So she asked for my parents' names. I told her my parents' names. I said, "Just don't use their names in the story." We finished up, went back to Minnesota. The following day, I received a phone call, and it was a reporter. And she called me and she said, "Mr. Watson, typically when someone like you tells their story, they tend to exaggerate their story." She said, "I'm actually looking at your parents' criminal background. You're actually not telling your whole story." And I remember I didn't get a chance to see my parents' criminal background at that time, but when I was writing my next book, The Resilience of Champions, I had to actually get their criminal background records, and I was blown away. But what stunned me most about the reporter in her article was on the second page of the Denver Post newspaper. This is what her article read. She talked about me not blinking when she asked my parents' names, and she talks about the criminal background records. But then she said, as she looked through them, she wondered how Tommy Watson made it. And I'll tell you, when I got a chance to look at those same criminal background records a few years ago, there was a piece of me that wondered, wow, how did I make it? And you'll see from my story here, by the time I entered the University of Minnesota to play football, my parents were arrested 121 times. My mother had a criminal background record of 12 pages. You see here, the front and back pages of a criminal background record. My dad had 18 pages long. My mom had been arrested 44 times by the time I graduated. My dad had been arrested 77 times by the time I'd entered into the University of Minnesota. So you talk about lots of transition, lots of changes taking place in a childhood. That was definitely the case. By the time I was born until I was 1 year old, my mother was arrested 11 times. And unfortunately, that meant a lot of foster homes for me and my siblings. So in fact, by the time I was in third grade, I lived in numerous foster homes and crisis centers and motel rooms, separated from my siblings. Between second and third grade year of school, I attended 4 different elementary schools in 1 year. My teachers didn't believe in me. I had a learning disability I didn't know anything about at the time. And then in second grade, I found myself in a very, very difficult situation. My mother and father living with my mother and father was my older sister. She was in 6th grade. My other sister was in 5th grade. I was in 2nd grade. I had a younger brother who was in 1st grade, and we had a 1-year-old little sister. And my parents were leaving us for days by ourselves by this time. And what happened was my older sister would stay home with my 1-year-old baby sister, and the rest of us, we would go to school, not necessarily to learn, but to steal food. We would steal food and bring it back home so my sisters could eat. On the weekends, we would go in grocery stores and steal food so we can eat. And I remember even kind of raising my little sister as though she was like my daughter. I didn't know what a daughter was at the time, but changing her diapers, we taught her how to walk and everything else. So my little sister was almost like our little baby. And in 2nd grade, we were taken away from my parents and placed into another foster home. And my little sister went to another foster home, and it almost killed my spirit. And I remember just being so angry and so pained by the experience. And I got to the foster home. I didn't listen to the foster parent. I didn't want to be there. The only time I had joy was when we had visitors come to the house. And on one particular day, a lady showed up with her son. And we were instructed to go out in the hallway and entertain the young man while the adults spoke. So we got to the hallway. My 2 older sisters went to one side. The young man stood in the middle, and me and my little brother stood on the other side. And there was completely silence for a moment. And then one of my sisters asked a question of the young man. She said, "So what grade are you in?" And the young man looked kind of puzzled. He said, "I'm in 3rd grade. Why?" And then my sister started chit-chatting back and forth again. And then after a couple more moments of silence, the other one came back. She said, so what's your name?" to the young man. And again, he looked kind of puzzled. He said, "My name is Levere." And then suddenly my sister started jumping and jumping around and hugging each other. And me and my little brother looked at each other. It was like, this is embarrassing. They have a crush on this kid. Well, after a couple moments, they stopped jumping around. They said, "Your name is not Levere. Your name is actually Leverio. You are brother. You are brother." That was a mind-blowing situation. The first time ever I met my oldest brother. And it was a game changer for me. The following year, as a 3rd grader, I was separated from my sisters, and my brother and younger sister not only was a 3rd grader, Next time I was go join a local gang with hopes of someday leading that gang in my neighborhood. Well, my aunt that I was living with at the time was pretty smart, and she got me involved in basketball. And basketball literally saved my life because everything I was looking for in the world of gangs, I received from playing basketball. A sense of belonging, connecting with a coach who was a great male mentor for me, connecting with other kids who had similar goals and dreams. So sports was my everything. By the time I was in 7th grade, I was back with my mother and father for 2 years. We found ourselves in another very difficult situation. It was a bright, beautiful, sunny day in the city of Denver in the summertime, going into my 8th grade year of school. And we were now renting a house in the neighborhood. And I'm there watching my favorite show. And suddenly there was a knock at the door. And I go to the door, and to my surprise, there stood the police and local sheriffs. And I'm saying, wow, why are you here? And they had informed me that my parents had not been paying rent and that we had to get out. And I'm saying, wow, get out? You mean in like 60 days, right? He said, no. I said, you mean in like 30 days, right? They said, no. I said, so when are we supposed to move out? They said, right now. I just kept saying, right now? Where are we supposed to go? Right now, where are we supposed to go? They said, that's not our problem. You guys have to get out. They went into our house and started throwing everything we owned into the front yard. I just kept saying, where are we supposed to go? From there, I finally mustered up the courage to leave the house with my family, my siblings rather. And I remember walking down the stairs, listening to all of our things being thrown in the yard behind me and breaking. And I remember taking a moment to look up at the porches around me. And there were all my friends, laughing, giggling, making jokes during the lowest point of my life. And there was a piece of me that wanted to break down and start crying right then and there. But I kept it together. But later on that evening, I couldn't keep it together as the folks from the neighborhood went into our yard and took everything we owned. And there was nothing we could do about it. From there, my family of 9 of us then moved into this motel room. 1 room, 2 beds, 1 bathroom for my entire 8th grade year of school. And in this room, there were 6 adults who were all drug addicts. And my little brother and little sister and I were kind of left to fend for ourselves. So our clothes weren't clean. We went to school. We were talked about not only by our classmates, but also by our teachers. But the thing I continued to do at this time was I played basketball. And basketball kept me engaged and kept me in a lot of trouble. I ran into a coach who changed my life. He came into the inner cities of Denver and talked to me and my comrades about the potential of going out to a private suburban Denver high school and getting a good education. And I remember for the first time ever, that word hope we talked about in the beginning, I remember the first time ever in my life feeling that word hope in my spirit and in my soul. And for the first time ever while living in that motel room, I went on to see myself not living in poverty ever again. So while living in a motel room, these were the awards I went on to achieve. I went and became the 1-on-1 basketball champ of my school, the wrestling champ, got a 3.0 for the first time in school. Then I won an award that was given to 6 kids in the entire state of Colorado while living in a motel room. So I talked about the power of hope. Power is absolutely critical to having career resiliency. So just keep that in mind as we're ready to finish up my story here, though. The following year, my parents ended up going back to prison. They didn't want me going to the high school where this coach was. However, I went to move with my other grandmother here, my grandmother Helen, and her goal was that I go out to the high school and do well every day. So every morning as a 9th grader, I took 3 city buses one way to high school every morning. Did that, take about an hour and a half to get to school. I would take the same bus back home after school, after sports was over with, where I'd get back home anywhere between 8 and 10 o'clock at night. Did this for several years. By my junior year of high school, my grandmother there had developed Alzheimer's disease and had to be placed into a nursing home. In the meantime, my little brother got heavily involved in gangs and was shipped off to juvenile prison after taking a gun to school. My older brother, who I told you guys about in the beginning, was now coming back around because he had ties to the same gang as my little brother. My mother now had gotten out of prison, was no longer doing drugs and was trying to do the right thing, but she faced the big challenge of not being able to find employment. So my mother turned to selling drugs to take care of us. And in the middle of my senior of high school, my mother had been busted for selling drugs, and I was on our way back to prison again. So in the meantime, I am now faced with the situation of what am I going to do next? And I remember in the meantime, I'm being recruited by all these schools. I had 30 scholarship offers, and I'm being showcased in the newspaper. I'm the MVP of our school and what have you. and I'm not quite sure what the future holds for me. So here I am in the principal's office, signing my letter to go play football on National Signing Day with the University of Minnesota. And what you can't see in the media, the principal's office, is all the media that's kind of stuffed in there. They're all celebrating my success on the football field, but in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, where am I going to sleep at tonight? I eventually found myself homeless and was sleeping on a friend of the family's floor. End up graduating, barely graduating. My family sent me off to University of Minnesota with this trunk 26 years ago, and I never moved back. I went to University of Minnesota. I had to focus either on school or academics. Which one do you think I focused on? Throw that question out to the crowd. School or academics, which one did I focus on? Excuse me, school or athletics? I'm sorry, school or athletics?
Schools.
Which one did I focus on?
Schools. Okay, schools. One sport, athletics.
Mostly school, huh?
Sports. That's getting a little bit more even here.
Okay.
Up. Sports, athletics. It's
All
kind of
right.
half and half. I'll say that right now.
Well, I'm glad we have some people who believe in my athletic ability and also some people who believe in my mind power. I appreciate that. So let's see what happens. I was focused solely on sports. And so thank you guys for the ones who answered that correctly. Focused solely on sports and going to the NFL. By the springtime, I was looking pretty good. Things were looking pretty promising. And then suddenly, my junior year of college, I was in the midst of lifting weights. My junior year, going into my senior year, rushing through a weight workout, and I went to power clean 300-something pounds from the floor. And suddenly, I didn't use my legs, and I pulled my back. And just like that, I was doubled over on the floor, and I couldn't move, and my body was shaking, and tears was coming out of my eyes, and just like that, my football career was over with, and I was devastated. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do because all my life I had set my sights and my career goals based upon going to the NFL. So now that dream was gone, and I had to start thinking about what am I going to do next. Luckily, I found a way to begin to use my story to inspire others to go on to be better and to become greater, and that's what I began to do. Eventually went on to graduate from university in 1997. See the peace sign there? Hopefully the peace sign is still cool. My kids tell me it's kind of outdated and kind of played out now, but I still do the peace sign. So I'm a big fan of the peace sign. So I got my first degree from University of Minnesota and really enjoyed my experience there and really was excited about everything that came afterwards as well. So today I'm a speaker, executive coach, and also a trainer as well. And if you're interested in hearing more about my story, A Face of Courage is the book you can go check out there. Resilience of Champions will be the things that we'll be talking about in a moment. The foreword was done by my teammate, Tyrone Carter, two-time Super Bowl champ Tyrone Carter, and Jim Thorpe winner as well. So I really appreciate him contributing to the piece there as well. So, and then also lastly, the book has been converted to a movie. Hopefully you guys will see that on the silver screens here soon, called Resilient. So big fan of the resiliency and resilience in itself. So now, when I was fired from my first job out of college, I was working with a nonprofit organization. I came in on a Monday. Was very excited to be there. And my boss told me, she says, Tommy, you're a good guy, good person. However, you do not have the leadership skills for this position. Today's your last day. And my mouth dropped to the floor and I'm saying, what? My last day? I just got married. I had family and what have you. And I remember just being so devastated. I was working downtown Minneapolis. I was driving my car to a location over North Minneapolis and taking the bus in. And I remember just being so devastated that literally on my way back to the car, I just applied at every business that I could going back to the car because I knew I had so much responsibility on me. I was devastated and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do and how I was going to move forward. Lo and behold, I was at several job fairs and I was applying for all these corporate positions because at this time I had a college degree. And by my third job fair, no one had called me back from any of those corporate positions. However, there was a guy that I had met 2 other times at previous job fairs. He was from McDonald's, and he just caught me on this 3rd time. He said, Tommy, glad to see you again. Have you thought anything about coming to McDonald's? And I said, nah, I have a degree. I'm not going to work at McDonald's. So McDonald's is not for me. He said, no, no, no. That's not the McDonald's that we're talking about. We're talking about putting you in a global management training program where you can actually get the leadership skills that you need to thrive and survive. And for probably about several more weeks, I kind of held on to my dream that I was going to work corporate, and it didn't happen. And I finally gave McDonald's a chance, and it ended up being one of the most fulfilling, most incredible aspects of a career that I could have ever found. So one of the things I want to share with you guys, sometimes when we're on a pathway to advancing ourselves career-wise, be open to taking the alternative route. Be open to exploring opportunities that may not necessarily you had been on your radar screen initially. Because again, McDonald's, I would have never thought in a million years that I'd work at McDonald's with a college degree. But like I said before, it ended up being one of the best jobs I ever had. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things I learned at McDonald's that helps with career resiliency. I went on to win the leadership award after 2 years, and how it helped me end up going back and get 4 degrees after leaving. I got 3 more degrees after leaving McDonald's, and then decided to go on and become a school principal, Palmer Lake Elementary School in Brooklyn Park. And there were some of my pictures of my staff and my wife there as well. And I can tell you, McDonald's was probably one of the most critical, probably the most critical position ever in my journey to do leadership stuff. I'd always wanted to position myself to be in a leadership role, but I wasn't quite sure how to get there. And going to work at McDonald's, I then left McDonald's after 2 years and went back to the school system. I was never a teacher, never assistant principal. I never worked at the central office. The things that helped me most become a principal were all the skill sets that I gained from McDonald's. Absolutely amazing journey. And as mentioned, so my students made a major reading goal. I don't do horses, but this is the one time as a principal I jumped on a horse. We had 1 suspension for the year, had a great time. And then, of course, Elvis Watson. As a principal, you got to be willing to be a fool for the kids. So that was my Elvis impersonation there. So it was a good time. Really enjoyed that experience there. But today I'm able to really live my dreams as a speaker and executive coach and trainer based upon the setbacks that I had faced, in particular that initial setback of being fired from a job, not knowing how I was going to move forward, and then eventually going on to be able to position myself as a principal and now being able to take care of business as an entrepreneur. So let's talk about, so there's some other pictures of some of my engagements and what have you. So I'm able to live my dreams today. Really thankful for that. So let's talk about the first aspect, the first thing that's going to be critical on your journey to having career resilience. Now, we talked about hope in the beginning, but again, I don't know that oftentimes we really dig deeper when it comes to looking at that word hope. But hope really is a very, very powerful word. So the first thing we have to be willing to do is we have to be hooked on hope. We have to be optimistic. We have to have only positive expectations, no matter what challenge you're facing in your journey. Maybe you're at a place where you're about to be laid off, or you've been laid off at a company you've been with for many years, though. You have to believe that you still can make it, regardless of where you are today, though. Maybe you're starting out, you're not getting the opportunities that you want. Like myself at the time, I was not getting leadership opportunities. You still have to believe that your time is coming, that it's going to come at some point in time, though. But more than anything, hope sometimes is usually that quiet voice that says, you know what, I'll try again tomorrow. Oftentimes, I remember when I got fired from that job, I was so stressed out that I had to really get myself to a place where I had to go rest to relieve the stress. So I tell individuals, one of the first steps you want to take is to rest. Try to rest your mind, try to rest your body, so you don't continue to stress, because that stress becomes very advantageous to your body. So you got to have hope, and you got to be willing to say, you know what, today did not work out in my best interest. Things did not go well for me. However, tomorrow I'm going to get back up and I'm going to shoot my shot again. But today I missed a couple shots. So today did not work in my favor. So that's one of the things you got to be willing to do, and you got to be mindful of on this journey when you're facing a setback or dealing with change. 2 very, very critical aspects of hope. I know you've heard that whole saying, where there's a will, there's a wave. I'm gonna go a little deeper into that saying there. That's very, very critical, and I want you guys to know about 2 components of hope. First aspect of hope is we have to have what we call willpower. So my grandmother used to say, she said, boy, there has to be some You got to have some want to about yourself. So there's something internal within you that has to want to achieve, want to get up, want to move forward, want to advance. That cannot be coached. That cannot be taught. That has to be something that you simply want to do. And one of the best ways to tap into that willpower is to think about previous successes that you have had, knowing that you have faced other setbacks in your life as well, but you have been able to get beyond those. So when you look at some of those previous setbacks, that's one of the biggest things I had to do when I went to go pull myself up off the mat after being fired from my job. I had to think about some of the setbacks that I had previously in my life, and I had to take one step, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back sometimes, but I had to just get up out of bed and begin to just slowly get myself back in the game. But the second component that is very, very critical that we miss sometimes when it comes to hope is we have to have way power. And way power is all about those outside drivers, okay? That provides us the goals. So willpower gets us in the game, but way power keeps us in the game. Because now with way power, what you're looking for is you're looking for that blueprint. You're looking for those guides. You're looking for those mentors. You're looking for those role models. You're looking for the how to. Because if you don't have the way and you simply have the will, at some point in time, you're going to lose hope. You're going to get burned out. If you get the way, but you don't have the internal drive, it's not going to work either, though. So you have to have the combination of those two things. You have to have willpower. You have to have way power. So if you're in a company where you're striving to move ahead, you got to be willing to find mentors. You got to be willing to find the blueprint of what other people have done. Find other companies, find other individuals who have been in similar positions in other companies who have advanced themselves, and start finding out what it took for them to advance and get ahead. Find out what it took from the person who was fired from the position, who have been in a job for many, many years. How did they bounce back? You want to learn their stories. Way power is absolutely critical in this journey. So keep that in mind as well. So for those organizations with hope, here's typically what you will see inside that organization. You're going to see positive employees. If you're a leader and you're supervising other individuals, hope is going to be an absolutely critical element of what you should have in your workplace environment. You're going to have individuals who are going to tend to be more positive. Employees are going to be seeking out challenging goals. They're not going to skirt change and opportunities to grow. They're going to be seeking those things out. They're going to pursue those goals that are worthwhile to them. And what you're going to have rather than having a toxic environment, you're going to have an environment where people are working interactively with each other and celebrating the successes and moving forward. So as a leader, having hope in the environment is actually critical. So how can we increase our hope? Okay. Move my screen here so I can see this here. A couple things. I'm sorry. Oh, that didn't work too well. I'm sorry.
That's
sorry
okay.
Okay, let me go back to that. I can't. Any questions while I'm pulling this back up?
Yeah, just one quick one. Someone asked what the specific role at McDonald's that you had.
So I was in the global management training program. I came in as a manager trainee and eventually became manager. So great question there. Okay. So when it comes to having hope, one of the first things we have to do is really think of setbacks as opportunities, not necessarily failures. So in life, we have to see when we're denied opportunities for advancement, whether it be for a position or for another opportunity with another company, or we lose a position, we have to see that as an opportunity to grow, not necessarily as an opportunity to fail. Because in life, failure simply becomes that opportunity for you to learn something and advance from it, though. And I mentioned before, recall previous successes. So if you're in a situation right now where you're struggling, your confidence is kind of low, think about some of the strategies, the things that you did to advance yourself and move beyond other challenges and changes that you had faced in your life. Because then you want to take and employ those same strategies in where you are today, though. It's going to be critical that you find individuals who can help you meet your goals. So if you're in a large company, one of the great things to do is to find mentors. When I was at McDonald's Corporation, one of the things I did, I had a mentor in the corporate office. He wasn't necessarily in the store, but we met on a regular basis just to talk about what steps, what things that were out before me that I was not seeing, and how I needed to prepare myself to adjust on it to those things later on in life. So find people who can help you within the organization, but also find people who can help you outside the organization. It may be a spouse, it may be a family, or it may be a good friend, it may be your children. Find you some cheerleaders that can help support you on your goal. And that ties into our next piece there. Celebrate the small wins. No win is too small to celebrate. Stop, celebrate. If you sent off a number of resumes, even if they all came back denied or rejected, celebrate the fact that you were able to meet that goal. Set daily goals for yourself. Celebrate the execution of those goals daily. And then next, create alternative paths. So if this happens, then I'm going to do this. And even in your current workplace, I encourage individuals I'm coaching to have, if this happens, then this is going to happen. So after being fired that one time, every position I went into afterwards, I had an if-then plan coming in the door. If I'm fired again, this is what's going to happen. So you got to have those things in place before challenges and turmoil comes up. And no matter what, in the end, never, ever, 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 ever give up. Keep going. Remember, in life, you either win or you learn. You only lose when you stop. So my question to you, that I want input on, is what do you do daily to remain hopeful about your career path? So what are you doing daily to keep yourself motivated, keep yourself hopeful, keep yourself inspired, keep yourself filled with optimism? What are you doing daily to keep yourself heading in a forward direction on your career path?
We have some coming in. Prayer, continue to learn and look for opportunities, achieve short-term or milestone goals, believe I'm still able to learn and grow, think about next steps, visualize positive outcome.
Yes, yes, those are excellent.
And one person had a question about, like, with the steps that you've talked about increasing hope, an example of how you implemented one of these in your journey.
Yeah. So one of the things I did, and one of the things we used to do when I played football for the University of Minnesota, we would always have, I didn't go back before them. When I was in high school, when I was striving to go to the NFL, the player that I actually always followed and kind of kept as a blueprint for me was Barry Sanders. So everything Barry Sanders did when he was at the University of Oklahoma State, I actually mocked and did in high school. And then when he got to the pros, I did the same thing at the University of Minnesota. So that was one of the things I did career path-wise. I began to follow one of the top executives who had written a book at McDonald's Corporation, follow a lot of his pathway to become an executive. So he had written a book, and I kind of read that book inside and out. And we became a mentor-mentee relationship via email, because he was in Chicago at the corporate office, and I was in Minneapolis at the time. We became good friends via the over the internet, though. So that's one of the things you can do as well.
Great.
Other questions?
And just other feedback. People think about next steps, set daily goals,
Yes.
subscribe to motivational websites.
Yes, that's a great one. Yes, and when we're talking about, well, I'm talking about sports, being a former athlete. This is something that coaches do very, very well. They keep the players feeling hopeful. I remember Jim Wacker, when I played for the University of Minnesota, we would lose games sometimes by 30 points, but he did a great job of preparing us and making us feel hopeful that following week that we were going to win that game, though. So you got to start with yourself, and then if you have a team, you want to make sure you transfer it over to your team as well. So let's move forward to the next step. So the next thing is, you got to be willing to cheer on change. So no matter what happens in life, my grandmother used to say all the time, there's two things that's going to be constant. So she said, change and more change. So change is coming. And the purpose of change is usually, well, before I do that, I like this. We talk about cheering on change. You guys know who this guy is right there? Who's that guy? See who knows who he is.
I know, but I'll let the audience say it.
Okay, let's see.
All right, we got some Ric Flair fans out there.
Ric Flair.
Jesse Ventura, Hulk Hogan. Okay.
Not quite Jesse. Jesse didn't have any hair though. He did have hair, but he didn't have the blonde hair though. But our own Ric Flair, and his big saying was "Woo!" whenever change kind of happened there. And Ric Flair went to University of Minnesota, went on to become one of the best wrestlers of all time. So we have to have that same attitude, mentality when we're facing change, we got to get excited and just be like, woo, here we go. So when we look at change, change is meant to do a couple things. It's meant to make us become different. It's meant to alter us and to or modification as well. But in essence, it's designed to make us different. Now, the outcome of that can be positive or negative, but that's going to be totally up to the way we respond to the change. But change is going to happen regardless. So we have to make the choice of how we're going to go along with it to make sure we're changing in the positive and not the negative. So here's a couple strategies we're going to look at. Well, first, here are some challenges why people do not change, okay? First of all, change isn't always popular. I remember going into the work at McDonald's with a college degree, and people were saying, you actually work at McDonald's, you have a college degree, what are you doing? What are you talking about? You're a loser. But we have to get to a place where we say, you know, who cares? Who cares what you think? Who cares what you think? I'm going to go forward and do this new thing anyhow. The second thing is fear of the unknown, which is very, very common. But sometimes stepping out into something new allows us to grow. And then lastly, leaving our comfort zone. Our comfort zone is obviously a very comfortable place, very familiar place. However, staying in our comfort zone, oftentimes we do not grow. You know, it's funny when I get a chance to go across the U.S., a lot of times talking to a lot of folks. I talk to a lot of folks who have never left their communities, oftentimes, and they are oblivious to the world that is outside around them, unfortunately. So I encourage individuals to take steps to step out of your comfort zone. Do things that you wouldn't normally do. Next time you write a report or you write a letter, write it with your non-dominant hand. Do something different. Challenge yourself to do something different. Okay? You know, dealing with change, you said sometimes the winds of change, when the winds of change blow, coping with change. When the winds of change blow, some people build walls, others build windmills. We have to be willing to be those windmills because change is coming no matter what. Leaders must be willing to be proactive about change. You have to be willing to share a game plan to your employees daily. If you're an employee, you need to be asking your supervisors, what's the game plan? You know, whether it be daily or weekly. We have to make sure we're being consistent in what we're asking others to do. Encourage flexibility and creativity. McDonald's was a great organization that really encouraged creativity. I remember when I was working at McDonald's, what is it called? The McDonald's breakfast with the pancake and syrup in there. What is it called? You know what I'm talking about, John?
It's like the platter breakfast, or
yeah, but it's in the sandwich. It's the
the McGriddle.
The McGriddle, yes, the McGriddle. Someone had creatively came up with the McGriddle when I was working at McDonald's, and they remember trying it at different stores, and it became a huge hit. So we got to be willing to try some things. Be focused on solutions. It's easy to get honed in and focus on the problem. And as we mentioned earlier, we want to be focused on being optimistic. So how do we embrace change? You got to reframe change as an opportunity and not necessarily something that's coming to get you, okay? We also got to look at change as in terms of who can support us in this endeavor as well. Don't go at it by yourself. You don't have to go at this endeavor by yourself. And chances are there's someone out there who's already went down that road before you. Tap into that information. Find out how they've done it as well. And then become open to change constantly. Don't just try to change one time. Change oftentimes. Try some things that are going to throw you out there and really put you in a situation where you're growing a lot. And be aware, I can't see that whole slide there as well. John, can you see the rest of that?
Yeah, be aware that no change leads to stagnation and be calculated in your response to change.
Absolutely. So again, change is all about growth. So my question for you, what are you doing to prep yourself for those anticipated changes or unanticipated changes in your career? So what are you doing right now to prepare yourself for those things that you may see coming down the pipeline and those things that may not necessarily be anticipated? What are some things you're doing right now?
And we have about 5 minutes to the top of the hour, but okay. Some people have said they got an advanced degree after being a paralegal for 35 years.
Great.
Strengthening my base skill set. My direct manager is very supportive of finding a more stable, nurturing workplace, seeing a therapist or a
Yes.
mental health counselor, lifelong learning, reading Harvard Business Review articles.
Okay, great.
I
So
second
John,
that.
I think the folks get it. The quote I like to live by is, "It's better to have an opportunity to be prepared for one than to have one and not be prepared." So it sounds like you guys are definitely preparing yourself for those opportunities that may or may not come in the future. So let's move on to the next one here. The last and final one is all about the corner office confidence, and what that is about, seeing yourself there before you get there. The big difference between those folks who tend to be more confident and those who are not are typically the vision. They see themselves arriving at a particular place before they're even there. Many of us who do not see us getting ourselves there tend to lack that level of confidence. We want to begin to see ourselves arriving where we're going before we even get there as well. And then confidence sometimes is not necessarily about how others see you, but how you see yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then 5 things to keep yourself confident. You got to believe in yourself. Be willing to do jobs that others aren't willing to do. People complaining about certain jobs, jump in there and do it. Maximize your resources that are around you. Always be prepared for the next opportunity, and then celebrate those ahead of you. Don't be the hater. Celebrate those folks who are moving ahead of you, and they can bring you along as well. And we won't necessarily go into the last question because of time, but something I want you to think about is, what's your future vision for yourself? What are you doing to create that vision of confidence for you to go on to achieve your goals and dreams as well? And then, John, we're at that place where we want to do the book giveaway. I know you've randomly selected 2 people. Do you have names?
Yeah, Edward T. and Sandy O. I'll be emailing you as far as if you're interested in the book, and we'll
Congratulations.
get you a copy.
Congratulations. We have time for 2 questions if there are 2 questions out there.
All right. We had one from the beginning where how does somebody position their work skills and talent, like maybe when they're more facing career change at a more advanced stage and might be facing age discrimination or just trying to reset later on in your career?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. One of the big things is you hear me talk about this over and over again, find other individuals who have already done it. Be willing to go back to school and again get some additional credentials or training or what have you. Even seek out opportunities for employment, because you're bringing a lot to the table. If you've already been in the workplace for a long time, working in a particular industry, there's a lot that you already know that a lot of people can probably benefit from knowing from you. So even if it's on a part-time scale, setting up a part-time consulting company for you to be able to share your expertise can be another great opportunity for you as well.
Mm-hmm. And somebody else writes, what if you have a leader at your organization who isn't very engaged? Part of the reason change has been difficult is because I don't feel confident in my new manager.
Absolutely, and that's pretty common, unfortunately, in a lot of workplaces. One of the things I would suggest you do is maybe go into your leader and see if you can present some ideas for some new initiatives in the organization. Because again, that leader may not necessarily see these initiatives in the benefit, but if you can spell them out, how these initiatives that you're going to come up with can benefit the team, that department, maybe that's something that can spark a flame or fire under this leader to get that person moving forward. And if those things don't work, then I would probably say you might want to consider either switching departments or even switching companies as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have one more.
I'm just sorting through.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah, I think there is definitely, with at least from some of the questions, feedback about kind of age and how old is it to make a change in career, and I'll just contribute my 2 cents is that
Sure.
I think if, like Tommy was speaking about, if as you reach out to mentors or have can able to establish that vision. I've seen people make career changes later on in life, but definitely there is a confidence factor in there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I would say don't minimize your expertise that you have acquired working with these companies for a long time, because again, maybe you're at a place now where working for another organization may not necessarily be in your best interest. Maybe it's you now need to begin to prep yourself to work for your own organization as a consultant, maybe starting out part-time and sharing your expertise with other individuals who may be trying to climb the ladder and do a lot of things that you're doing. You may even have expertise that the company can benefit from bringing you back in with as a contractor as well. So be open to those ideas as well. Now, I'm not going to be able to answer all the questions, but feel free to email me at tawatson.com. Again, if you want more information on the book there, but you can email me, and I'd certainly be willing to answer more questions to help you out and serve you in any capacity. I really appreciate you guys having me on today as well, though.
Tommy,
So
thank you.
tawatson.com is a great way to get a hold of me if you have any questions at all.
Absolutely. And yeah, and encourage folks to visit Tommy's website. There's lots of good articles and other features as well. So Tommy, this has been a while in the making, so I really appreciate the time that you set aside today to be with our online audience of alumni and friends. And again, wish you and your family, hopefully it will be uneventful weather in North Carolina, but thinking of you all. And again, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise today.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Take care. God bless.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I will mute you here in just a sec. Thank you to Dr. Tommy Watson again. And I will be moving back to my slides. Just give me one moment. So thank you so much for all the alumni, students, and friends who've joined us today. I'll make another plug. Tommy mentioned the importance of mentorship and reaching out to others. Definitely check out that Maroon and Gold Network. That's a resource for alumni as well. We already have 1,300 alumni and friends on there willing to share career and industry advice. It's a great way if you're looking just to explore maybe a new industry or maybe moving to a new geographic area. People who are willing to share advice, and when you sign up, you can see exactly what people are willing to talk about. Again, we have some great webinars coming up. New management tips for new managers. Tommy touched on a little bit of that today, but we'll have alumna Kate Bischoff talking about that on the 25th. Again, thank you to our partner in webinar supporting sponsor, Liberty Mutual Insurance, and thank you as well to University of Minnesota Alumni Association members who make initiatives like this webinar series possible. And you can help make our global community of alumni and students ignite success by joining as a member today at umnalumni.org/membership. Thanks so much. This is it was fun to kick off the webinar series again, and we're looking forward to a great semester of webinars coming up. So thank you again for taking time, whether over your noon hour here in the Central Time Zone or wherever you are tuning in from. Have a great day.